Do you want the best, most aggressive and solid chess opening packed with deadly gambits and traps? Or do you get frustrated memorizing chess openings and end up blundering in the opening phase? Don't worry, you're not alone. Memorizing those complicated first few moves can be hard. The Italian opening is favored and played by over 99% of grandmasters, including legends like Hikaru and the GOAT Magnus Carlsen. So this is the only opening you need as white, and these are the variation you need to learn. Except I will explain it in 3 steps, explaining the mission of every piece, in which the 3rd step is most important. Step 1. Control the center. The first step in the Italian opening is to control the center by developing knight and then bishop. It starts with the king pawn e4, controlling central squares. Black fights for center with e5. The follow-up is knight f3. It develops a knight to its most active square, attacking the e5 pawn and further exerting control over the center. Meanwhile, black defends it with his knight. And then you play bishop c4, the Italian game. The mission of this bishop is targeting that weak f7 square. This is a key target in black's position because it's only defended by the king. Now, let's talk about your knight. I'll take these moves back real quick: e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6 and bishop c4, the Italian game. Black does some normal development moves, and these 2 squares, e5 and f7, are incredibly important. That's why your piece's mission is to attack these squares. Meanwhile, there are some important continuation from here. Don't miss them, otherwise you might lose. So let's see some games around this variations. Let us first look at most common move knight f6. Remember what I told you, that f7 square is a weakness in his position. We fry our opponent by playing knight g5, also known as the fried liver attack. Now we have 2 attackers against that pawn, and if white plays some nonsense move, then he might be in trouble after this fork. So the only move which saved black is pawn d5, blocking the attack. White capture it and black take it with knight, unaware of a big disaster. Can you guess the move? In this position, white sacrificed. King takes, queen f3 check, king move to g8. Now can you find mate in 2? After queen takes d5, bishop e6, it is checkmate. Step 2. Castle and break open the center. In many variation, the best move could be castle and break the center with pawn. Like going back, other continuation might be bishop c5 controlling the center. Did you remember the step you have to control the center? You can play aggressively with Evan's gambit, but I don't recommend it to you right now because you are completely new to this opening. So you focus on controlling the center. So whenever you see any moves like h6, d6 or bishop c5, then white main mission is to take control of the center with d4, pushing as soon as possible. Other choice might be to castle, but I recommend going with trappy moves. For example, right now it is not possible. So in maximum case you have to play c3 preparing d4, controlling the center. Here is an example game for you. The game starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6 and bishop c4, the Italian game. Black plays bishop c5 controlling the center. White, following principle of controlling center, played c3. But black plays knight f6 attacking the pawn. White ignores the threat and continues his plan by sacrificing the pawn. Black captures the pawn, unaware the threat. But instead of recapturing, white plays e5 attacking the knight. Knight goes to e4, seeming a safe square. But in this position, white plays brilliant move bishop d5. Because the knight has no escape route and it is trapped. If you can't win from here, then your yellow is as low as your phone battery in an emergency. Going back in time, if your opponent plays knight g4, then recapture pawn attacking the bishop. Then at your level, the most common move at bishop b4 check? Now it is simple, just block check with knight. Don't memorize, just follow the step and mission. Here the step is development by controlling center. But what if your opponent is like Magnus Carlsen, which has only 0.01% chance at your level, and doesn't move his knight? Instead, he counterattack your bishop. Here the best move is playing bishop b5, pinning the knight as well as attack the knight. After the knight moves, the plan is same. Just follow first step, control the center by playing c takes d4. Here if white gives check, what would be the move? Can you guess it? Here it is tricky. Block the check with bishop, because if knight blocks that, you might lost your rook. This is the only thing you should remember. But don't worry, in most of games you will not get it, as I have played this opening more than 1000 times. Most player will move their knight or something else. Now the opening served its purpose, you are way ahead in development, having a good center control and have a big advantage. Now your middle game plan is simple. Just castle and kick the knight, and you will be in good shape. As a bonus, let me teach you something crazy. For example, after e4, e5, knight f3. What if your opponent plays something like f6, the Damiano defense? This is really deadly opening. In this position, white sacrifices the knight. After pawn takes, white's queen swoops in with a check on h5. If black tries to block the check with pawn, after queen takes e5, he loses his rook. Therefore, king moves to e7, queen takes with check, king f7, now the bishop joins the party. Soon after a series of moves, it is checkmate. So, if someone plays something like f6, don't get panic. Just remember, knight takes e5. Or if you get any other moves instead of e4, e5. Don't panic and blunder, just remember those steps. Let me summarize the opening. At first, don't memorize the opening. Just remember the basic steps. Like fighting for center, we consider different moves that black can play. Like the two knights defense. You can go with same plan, solidifying the center with d3 and then normal developing moves. But generally from 700 to around at 1200 ELO you can go with fried liver attack. Because it is more aggressive and trappy, and definitely many people can handle it, and will eventually make a blunder. Whereas, for any other move like bishop c5, h6 or d6, just follow the step 1 controlling the center by preparing d4 with c3. You can literally play this simple step for most common and best moves. There are many lines you can play like Evans' gambit. But why to learn those big lines and make your calculation like this?
I can also trade and take, and if takes, I take, if takes, queen e2, queen h4, g3, knight g3, check, c6, queen b7, knight h1, king there.
Just remember playing d4 controlling the center, and you will be in a good shape. Bruh. Also, we talked about step 2, castle and break open the center. If you don't want to get aggressive and want a simple opening moves, castling is not a bad option. Now, onto the most critical step, which is step 3, practice. Knowing the opening is great, but without practice, it's like trying to ride a bike without ever pedaling. So, play this opening repeatedly. Imagine yourself in a championship showdown, where each move is critical. If you haven't practiced, fear can derail your strategy, turning victory into missed opportunities. But don't worry, here's the solution. Grind this opening daily. To sharpen your skills, play this opening relentlessly. Practice makes us perfect. You can use Leech's Opening Explorer or chess.com or any other platform. Just play and practice. You will automatically remember this opening. Master this opening, and you will see a drastic change in your rating. Now you've learned the opening, but without knowing what deadly gambit your opponent might play against you, you could be as surprised as a king facing an unexpected check. Click on the left video to know more about deadly aggressive chess. Don't wait to be surprised. Be prepared.